Oh. Hello, everybody. Sorry about the delay here. It seems like my internet is lagging a little bit, but all of my controllers saying that I'm looking good. If it starts to lag up, just let me know. So jumping right into the topic today, we've all heard it before. Don't spend your money, just get an M car. Save up for an M car. Why didn't you get an M car? Or why are you putting so much money into that car just to make it look like an M car, but it's really not? These are all the things that we hear about for all of us non M car owners, which really brings us to the question of, do you really need an M car nowadays? Is it so essential that if you post anything on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, share pictures with your friends, are we so attached to the top trim that it's not worth posting about anything else other than an M car, at least for us BMW owners? And this is going to be applicable to anybody else here who, from whatever brand, whatever the top trim level is in your respective brand, do you really need that top level trim, or are you okay at a lower or even a base model? And so here we have kind of all the different iterations that the M2 has been through, from the base model M2 with the N55 engine, and then we jump up to the competition where we have that combined grille. And then from there, we had that engine that was tuned down from the M4 up until the CS, which got the full bore M4 engine, and it wasn't really held back anymore. And the main reason was because they just thought that it would still sales away from the M4, which, if you want a bigger car, if you like the look of the M4, the M2 won't deter you. Yes, it's the same amount of power in a smaller, lighter chassis. But if you don't really like the look, or if you're a taller person, you will still naturally gravitate to the M4. So even within the M cars, the M2 is still seen as the lesser M. So if you jump up to an M2, you're going to have people that say, how come you didn't just get an M4? There's always going to be that person that says, why didn't you get X model, right? And I think the thing that we have to realize is it ultimately comes down to us as the driver. You know, it's all about what we're willing to spend on the car. And from there, we can make a sound judgment. And I think one of the things is, you know, we need to stop being so concerned with what people think on the internet. Just because somebody with username 12345 said you should get an M car. Honestly, my opinion of the person who's writing that type of comment is somebody who's already envious of you, because they probably don't even have the car that you have, or they aspire to be something like you, somebody who's making content, sharing something, being productive in the world, and yet their only way to vent out their frustration is to say something negative to you. So in that respect, don't really let the externals of the world or the external situation affect what you really want in a car. And ultimately, I really do think that we should really be paying more attention to what we're willing to spend on a car, not necessarily how much we can pay for a car, but what we're willing to spend. You know, do the budgeting, figure out what your bills are, what your other goals are. Like if you want to buy a house, if you're paying off your college tuition, if you're paying off other debts, if you're supporting your family, whatever it is, and then let that extra money pay or be the budgeting amount for your car. And with that, you don't need to get an M car. You could get, you know, a trim down, you go with the base model. It really depends on what you're trying to do. And I think this should be the number one governing thing that determines if we need an M car or even the top trim level of said M car. You know, are you doing it just for bragging rights, or are there some things like in the interior that actually make sense? Here you can see that we do have the upgraded steering wheel. Do you like Alcantara? Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of it, just because, you know, if you don't take care of it, it's really off-putting as far as how it looks. And then also, it does have that faded look to it, whereas leather always has a nice appeal to it so long as you clean it and, you know, you put the conditioner on it. All and once you're done, you're kind of done. With Alcantara, you know, you gotta sometimes you have to steam it. You have to use the cleaner with hot water. You can't use too much water, and then after that, you have to let it sit. You can't handle it right away. Uh, so is that worth it to you, or is it just something to say, I got the Alcantara? And then there's also plenty of videos out there on YouTube that show that Alcantara is not necessarily a premium material. It's actually a relatively cheap material to make compared to leather. It's just used a lot in like race cars because it's a fire retardant. So that's kind of where it carries over. So, you know, for me, I got the M235i with the sport seats, but I do like the M seats. Is it worth it to get an M car when I got a salvaged M235i for just under 20 grand and I can throw in some M4 seats and then sell my old seats? No, right? Because I think I didn't even pay like $2,000 for the seats, right? So are the things that you want in the car, could you get them on the used marketplace for cheaper and still get that benefit? With BMW, when you want one thing, you usually can't get one thing. It usually comes in a package. Say, for instance, you want a bigger screen. Well, that's also going to come with the navigation and some of the other techie stuff. And then there, you know, you also, is it worth it for you to get the upgraded engine? You know, do you need an M engine, or something reliable like an N55 going to do it for you? Because you have to factor in is when you have the M engine, it makes more power, it sounds better, it's going to give you a better driving experience if you're a driving enthusiast. However, if you're somebody who uses your car primarily for commutes and you're in stop and go traffic for a long time, or if, say, you work night shift and you have to travel for an hour or two and you're usually on cruise control, it might be better for you, at least for that situation, to get a base model because you're going to get better gas mileage out of it. If something breaks, it's not going to be as expensive as an M car. And there's also less parts. Like here, we have 2 air filters. We have the carbon fiber brace. We have the cooler on the top, or the air cooler, which on an N55, you just have one air intake. And of course, this is a modified one, but just for example, you only have one air intake. Not all of them have these, you know, these metal pieces, and you don't necessarily need them either, right? And even if you did need to replace them, they're definitely not as expensive as the carbon brace. So all of these things will kind of add up. So when you're getting the car, don't just look at, yes, I can afford the car out the gate, but can you also afford the maintenance? And is the upkeep worth it for you? It's much easier to maintain an N55 as a daily versus an M car as a daily, especially if your commutes are much longer, right? Is it really worth it for you to just say, I have an M car? Or do you actually get the benefits and enjoy the benefits of the better engine, the better interior, and the looks, right? So we all know that, just using as a 2 Series as the example, that the M235i, 240i, 228i, and 220i all have kind of like this rounded shape to it, almost like a bubble or an oval, whereas the M2 with the upgraded bumper, the wider fenders, as well as the rear end getting all of that stuff, it looks more aggressive. It's more appealing. It looks like a sports car. It has definition to it, whereas this can very easily blend in. Now, all of this is very cosmetic, and once you're in the car, it doesn't really matter. However, if you're somebody who spends a lot of time looking at your car, if you're posting your car, if you're using it for like social media and all of those other things, that might be something that you want to consider. But if we're just talking about the car itself, these are all marketing tactics, right? And it wouldn't be so hard to say that you could find these parts on the used marketplace, or over time, aftermarket retailers will make, a similar design, but also a very similar aggressive M style bumper that you could swap over for cheaper. Do you really need it right now? Kind of thing. So these are just some of the examples, and of course, the side profile here. The M2 isn't bigger; it's just enlarged in this picture. So the car's footprint itself, they're equal. It's just in these two pictures, the M2 is zoomed in a little bit more than the M235i. Another thing that you have to consider is BMW typically with the M cars, they will fit in wider fenders in order to support the wider wheels because you have more power, therefore you need more gripping strength. The 2 Series is probably the hardest car out of the BMW lineup to fit up wider wheels, but that is something to be aware of is don't just think that you're just getting an upgraded engine. The reason why the M cars are wider is because they need to fit in wider tires and wheels there in order to give you support for when it comes time to lay down that power. And if going wider in wheels, say you want to do a show car, a track car, is something that you want to do, this might be something to consider if you're not going over the top. Now, if you are going over the top and you're going to cut your fenders anyways, then this is completely irrelevant. You're going to cut your fenders anyway, so it doesn't matter that the M2 comes with wider fenders from the gate because you're going to cut it up anyways. And with the 2 Series, after a certain point, like the M2 only has, I would say like maybe it can probably give you an inch more. So we're not talking like it's going to be able to give you night and day fitment improvement. The 2 Series overall has less space than the 3 Series. It's really evident not just in the wheels and tires, but when you're doing coilover upgrades, you'll notice it there as well because it's much harder to install the coilovers with the 2 Series because of how you have to break off the strut in the knuckle. You have to do it inside the wheel well versus tilting it out and pulling it out. And lastly, it's gonna come down to if you didn't get a sense of it yet, it's really gonna come down to what are you using the car for? Is it your daily? Is it a track car? Is it a show car? Are you getting sponsored? Are you hoping to be sponsored? Or are you trying to do something like, a rags to riches type of thing? All of these things will matter. But what I'm trying to say is don't let the internet dictate what you should get. Ultimately, this is your car that you're going to pay for. Nobody, especially the trolls that are on the internet, are going to pay for your car. I will be the first person to tell you, no matter what you get, be happy with it. And if it doesn't make you happy, then save up a little bit more so that you can be happy when you do get that car. I think the other thing too is when we're talking about the comments on the internet is we'll get like 20 comments that say, your car looks good, fitment looks good. Oh, hey, can you give me tips because what you did looks really good and I'm trying to do the same thing. We get a million of those type of comments, and then there's one person who says your car's trash. And the only comment we pay attention to is that one negative comment. So the other thing is, are you really getting negative comments, or are you only paying attention to the one negative comment in a plethora of positivity? Because in my experience, there's more people who are positive and willing to support you in this community versus, the opposite. Most people are willing to say, hey, even if something's wrong, like for instance, when my tires were bad and I made the wheel stud conversion video, I was just waiting on my tires from America's Tire. And so I said, you know what, car's down anyways, so just make the video now. A lot of the people were like, I have my priorities wrong and all this other stuff. But then there were a lot of people in those same comments that were saying, hey man, you might want to check your tires. It's probably not this, it's probably this. when you get to the alignment shop, you want to ask them, you know, did something come loose or whatever. There were a lot of helpful people in there. So just make sure that you're not only focusing on the negativity. Honestly, when it comes to negative comments, the best thing to do is either one of two things: just completely ignore it or delete it. A lot of the times these people are seeking attention, and although it's not as gratifying as, you know, responding back or doing a gotcha kind of comment, the best kind of revenge, believe me or not, is ignoring them, because they want attention. And when you ignore them, when you delete their comment and they come back a couple days later to see if you responded, and they're over there kind of like scrolling through the comments, indirectly they're adding playtime to your videos. If it's on YouTube, they're adding to the rewatchability of your video because they're trying to scroll through to find their comment. They don't really get a notification that you deleted their comment, so they're going to look. They're going to try to find if you responded. They're going to see, oh, what did they say? You know, I said something so good. And so that's the best way you can kind of get back, if you will, without tarnishing your image. Because if you get into a back and forth with somebody online, and don't get me wrong, I've been guilty of it too, it can present you in a bad light to the people who don't think that way of you, or who once thought of you in a positive light. So don't let the negative people bring you down. Ultimately, this is the car that you want. This is the car that you'll build. This is the car that will serve the purposes that you have intended for it. And when it's time to upgrade to the M Car, you'll know that it's the right time, it's the right choice, you have enough money, you won't get into debt, and it's the right decision overall for you. So I hope that that helped anybody out who is kind of considering, should I get an M Car or not? And just before we jump into the Q&A section here, I know that we've gotten a lot of questions about, should I make content, how to make content? So here's what I will say to people who are thinking about getting an M Car for content creation purposes. If you're looking to grab eyes and things like that, sure, on Instagram, maybe even on TikTok, it'll grab people's attention because, you know, the body lines are more aggressive, it's a better looking car, the interior, you know, usually looks better. However, if you're using it for content creation, if you're doing it for DIYs, you also have to look at the relatability. So although Instagram and TikTok and M Car might do well, keep in mind that those platforms don't pay as much and don't open as much doors as YouTube. So ultimately, the content creator goal should be, how do I make myself more marketable on YouTube? And in the beginning, say you have uploaded 0 videos and you're only looking to start right now. If you look at, say, for instance, the F80 and the M3, the F30, there are just over 3 million cars produced, while the F80, where is it here? 2014 and 2019. So here we go. 30,000, 35,000 if we round up. So we're talking about almost 100 times the amount of F30s that are on the road compared to the F80. And if you're doing DIYs, how-to videos, reviews of the car, I'm sorry, but you will get more eyeballs from doing stuff for the F30. And yes, you can say like, well, the F30 consists of the F20, the 320, 328i, 330, 335, and 340. Yes. But a lot of those cars, engines aside, share the same thing. It's not like the M2 and the M235i that have, you know, different suspension components. They have different fenders. They have different body lines. Pretty much all of the non-M cars share all of the other same body interior things. So unless you're doing something engine specific, anybody with an F30 will be able to relate to you. and you'll be able to have 100 times more eyes, at least in the case of the F30, compared to if you're doing F80 content. It's not to say that you should never do M cars, but perhaps if you're just getting started, if you need momentum, if you need those eyeballs, you're going to want to get a non-M car in order to build up that momentum in the beginning. Also, parts are cheaper for you. So you're going to be able to get more eyes, increase sales if you do affiliate links, so more volume on a car that's cheaper to maintain, that gets you better gas mileage. A lot of us who are looking to get into this, and if you're considering, should I get an M car or not? Let's face it, we're not, overly consumed with money, right? Some of us are still working a 9 to 5. I'm actually in my office right now where I do my day job. So if you're considering, should I get an M car or not? And if I'm doing it for content creation, you're also probably trying to parlay this into at least a side income. And in that case, I would say, no, you should not get an M car. You should get a base model, or at best a 340i, which I would still argue the 328i is probably the better way to go. Because again, as you go higher up in trim, usually the cars become more and more exclusive. So if you can touch all of the 328i people, and then also trickle in some of the 320, the 330, 335, and the 340, that's where you really want. Because if you do it in any other way, you're going to get less eyeballs. You're going to be less appealing to people because they can't really relate to you or your car. So keep that in mind. And when we're talking about what's the price difference on the used market right now, we can see that an F80, if you find one on the low end at 60K, we're probably talking about 45 to, after taxes and everything, that's probably going to be like 60,000, almost 70, depending on what state you're in when you have taxes and fees, versus a F30. And this is a 340. So high end, we're talking, and this is a G series, not an F. So we're talking mid 20s, let's call it 30. So still well below what is the lowest M car. Now you trickle that down to a 328i. You can find one, and I'm pretty sure you could negotiate this down to much closer to 10K. You could probably find a beat up F30 for less than 10K. And finding up a beat up car for content creation isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it gives you more things to do. You come in at a lower price point, and then you have extra money to do the mods or fixes on your car that people are looking to do on that car right about now. Think about the F30. It was brought into the market around 2011, 2012. And right around now, those cars, some things are starting to go bad, right? Gaskets are starting to fail. Like things like window motors, if you guys follow me on Instagram, that mine went bad recently. So all of these little things are starting to go bad on those cars. If you get a car that's pretty much messed up already, you're going to have to do all of these things. So you're coming in at just the right time, right? Like right now is a really good example of you're coming in when all those components are starting to go bad, and the price of the F30 just dropped. So a lot of people are looking to either come into the market for an F30, or because the G chassis have come out, people are looking to sell their F30s in order to upgrade. So it's not just getting back to our production model of 30,000. Let's just say each of these cars have 2 owners. We're talking about 70,000 to 6 million. And we all know that F30s change hands more frequently than an F80. M cars generally do not change hands as often as the base models. Honestly, I would say we can expect the F30 as a whole to change ownership at least 3 to 4 times. So if we're being conservative here and say, an F30 has on average 3 owners in its lifetime, that's 9 million. 9 million different people are potentially going to watch your video on how to do an oil change, opposed to 70,000. Keep in mind that people who can afford the M cars are probably not doing the maintenance themselves, especially the first owners, because it's under warranty. So even if this happened, a lot of these people are not doing the maintenance themselves. These people are. A lot of these people are. The secondhand owners, the people who are picking these up for the sub 10, just over 10 grand mark, these people are going to do the maintenance themselves. And they're going to look to you for the knowledge, the information, the how-to, the expertise on how to fix the car, thereby increasing your marketability and ability to grow on social media. So if using your car for content creation is a priority, do not neglect these numbers. It's not all about just, hey, I got an M car, but how marketable are you? You know, how once you have that foot traffic of people coming in to look at your videos, now it's time to upgrade. I think a good example of this is somebody like Thick Whips, right? He started out with an F30. You know, I think he got an M2 after that. He got the Supra. He went back to an F30. Although he never really establishes himself as an expert in the DIY market because he never has the cars long enough to do that. He had that F30 for a very long time, and then he made the jump. He already had the foot traffic, and he doesn't necessarily market himself as a DIYer as well. He does like kind of general reviews and little things here and there. But that's a really good example of starting out with a base model, and then once you have the momentum, once you have the income, make the jump. It makes more sense at that time, right? So I hope that helped anybody out who's just wondering or goes kind of on the fence if they should get an M car or not. And depending on your situation, hopefully that pointed you in the right direction. And if not, we are going to open it up for the Q&A section right now. And this doesn't have to be just, you know, stuff about should you get an M car or not. It can also be whatever it is that you want. So open Q&A right now. And if some of you are too shy to, you know, type something in, you can always send me a DM on Instagram and TikTok. However, I am a little bit slower to respond there. Usually during the live stream, it's a chance for me to catch up on all the questions that I haven't been able to get to, or all the DMs I haven't been able to get to. So I do reserve this time for everybody to have their questions answered if I haven't gotten to them on the other platforms. Oh, Car Snob. Okay. I think Car Snob, thank you for confirming with me that the connection was working. I think that's what we're talking about here because you are the first person to comment. It's good to see you. Aprulish, is that how I say your name? Is the M235i a good choice for a 21-year-old with good credit? I would say as long as you can afford it. If you can afford it, you can afford the maintenance, and not like you're barely making ends meet. You're paycheck to paycheck. Like you should have a little bit money left over. Yes, it's a very good option. The N55 is a very reliable engine. It's the second strongest and most reliable N55 other than the M2. And so long as you don't beat on it intentionally, it'll last you for a long time. If you're concerned about cost, you could always step down to a car with the N26 engine. And those cars have a 15-year, 150,000 mile warranty, whatever comes first. And BMW will take care of anything emissions related. So if the catalytic converter starts to degrade, if your turbo starts to go bad for some of the cars, anything like that, BMW will take care of. I think all that you have to pay for is the inspection fee, which is like $100 to $200, depending on what state that you're in. So if that's a concern, then I would say step down to a car that has an N26 engine, and you'll be perfectly fine. If you're still in like school, that should get you the whole way through school. Jay, I have a 428i, mainly used as a daily. I put an aftermarket M Sport number, maybe bumper, just because I like the aggressive look, especially since my car is all black. Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you're in it just for the looks, then there's no need to get an M car. You could swap over parts as they become available on the secondhand market and save a lot of money that way. I mean, I fitted a GTS hood on mine, so it's essentially the same thing. So if that's what you like, and also too is some of the headlights that come out, it doesn't look good on base model cars. Like you have the aggressive icon style lights that have, you know, sharp edges to them. It doesn't go well with the stock rounded bumper. But if you have the M Sport bumper, as you do, then those type of headlight upgrades are going to be good. And we all know that the F30 headlights, the halogen headlights, they are terrible. If you have an F30 base model 2 series, whatever it is, I think I would say, like, you know, as long as the car is running, the first upgrade you have to do is the headlights. The amount of visibility you will gain by going either projector or LED is night and day. It's a mod that you will always be thankful for when you're driving at night. It's one that you will never regret, and a well good investment on your time and money if you plan to install it yourself. Okay. Aprilish is asking, what year is your car, Jay? You said it's 2015. 2015 F32. Young. I have the M340i 2022, and it's the perfect car except for the muted exhaust note. It doesn't sound as good as the 2020. Ah, okay, yeah. Honestly, the thing about the new M cars is that the valve is load based. It's not necessarily fully open, fully closed when you put it in Sport or Sport Plus or Comfort anymore. So the F chassis, if you put it in Sport, it's all the way open, or like 70% open, something like that. And then if you put it in Comfort, it's basically closed. With the newer cars, if the car is like standing still and it's not moving and you just try to rev it, even in Sport Plus, it doesn't open the valves. You'll have to get like a bypass harness, install that, and then I think you can code it in, or it automatically, depending on the manufacturer, will open the valves when you're in Sport or close them when you're in Comfort. They do sound much better when you do that, though. Like the G80, G82s do not sound good stock because of that. But if you get that bypass and open it up, it actually sounds much better. Jose. Hey, Fritz. Video idea. Install a dash cam and power it from the dimmable mirror. Okay. Yeah, I could start looking into that. Yeah, thanks for the suggestion. Okay. Yeah. I'll get to work on that. I'll take some suggestions on like what good dash cams are, and go from there. And then powering it up through the dimmable mirror was something I'll have to look into as well. It's not something that I'm familiar with, but I'm open to learning. So thank you. SMS for Hoa. I also have a 2022 M340i, trying to decide to tune or not to tune. So far, 100% stock. If you do something like BM3, you could get like all the maps, I think, for like $50 extra or something like that. That way you can tune it now, and then when you do the upgrade, you can tune it later. It's probably like the most flexible. And I'm saying that from personal experience. So that's exactly what I did with my BM3 tune. So you don't necessarily have to decide. I would say that if you feel like you want more power and it's a daily, an off-the-shelf map is probably going to get you to where you want to be. If you're tracking your car, you might want to do a dedicated tune once you get all the mods in there. But for most of us, something like BM3, MHD, you know, something like that is going to be enough with bolt-ons. M5 with 3 miles per gallon is better, and I would have purchased it, just can't. Hey, I would say like, oh, it's 3 mpg better. Okay. Yeah, I mean, hey, we all have to, make do with what we have. If the M5 isn't in the cards for you right now, it's not a problem at all. You could always, hopefully if your situation improves or whatnot, you could trade in your car and get the M5 that you wanted in the first place. But for the meantime, that 340i is going to serve you well. It's not a bad car at all. I think we're very spoiled now. We live a day and age where like, oh, I didn't get an M car, but I got a 335. Oh my goodness. Or I didn't get the M2 or the M4, I got a 228i. I mean, much better than when it was when I was growing up, when it's like, you get like a beater Geo Metro. Try looking that car up. Like try not having power steering. So, all of these cars are very good. We're talking F chassis, G chassis. I mean, we're picking, from the cream of the crop, I would say. It's not an M car, yes, but it's still a very good car, a very capable car, a car that should, if we take care of it, last us for many, many years. Jay, I learned how to do a lot of the maintenance on the F32 just from YouTube. Some of the maintenance is not as hard as it seems. Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of people say BMWs are expensive, they're hard to maintain. A lot of those people are the same people who do their oil changes once every 3 years, right? They change coolant like never. They never rotate the tires. They only do things on the car when it beeps or a light goes off, which sometimes there's a delay. Sometimes they go off prematurely. And so can you really take their word for it? Or is it something that us car enthusiasts can manage, right? Yes, BMW does charge a lot for some of their services and some of the parts. But if we're willing to do the work for something like an oil change, an air filter, cabin air filter, spark plugs, ignition coils, for like a weekend, if you're handy and you enjoy doing that type of stuff, owning a BMW becomes very affordable, and you get to scratch your itch in terms of, having your hobby or working with your hands, that type of fulfillment. A lot of us now, I think, have desk jobs or jobs where we don't really work with our hands anymore. So if you want something that's more engaging like that, then yeah, this is definitely a good option. Richard, I had a 16 435i GC, loved it, looking to trade it in for an 18 M3, but decided to go with a 2022 M240i. I'm really impressed with the B58 engine. Yeah, that B58, if you improve the plastic cooling components, that thing is a tank. BMW really did a good job of like stepping off of that N54 platform. I would say one of like the good things is like from the N54 to the N55, it became much more reliable. You definitely don't need to walnut blast nearly as much. Even in the M2, I think I saw an M2 at like 60 or 80K. I forgot, it was a while ago. They opened that thing up and those valves were clean. So, and then you branch that off and you go into the B58. The weak points of the B58 are usually unreliable tunes in the beginning. So it's from, it's like self-harm kind of thing. And then after that, it is the plastic cooling components, which if you upgrade to silicone or metal, it'll last. Then you take that into the S55, which is, again, building off of that N55, which was more reliable than the N54. And that thing is solid. I would say like one of the things that BMW didn't do such a good job off of was like when they cut the N55 essentially to make the N20, N26, and all the other 4-cylinder engines. It's asking that engine to do a lot of work when it's imbalanced as it's in motion. But there are workarounds for it, right? Like BMW did do the timing chain guide and all that other stuff for these services and things like that. But I would say overall, if you're getting a BMW with 6 cylinders post N54, you're getting a really reliable car. And that B58 can make a lot of power. It would have been better, I think, if they... actually, I don't know. I was going to say timing, it didn't work out. But if they gave the spruced up N55 to the 240i and they gave the B58 to the M2, it probably would have been perceived better, but still should have always had the M engine in there. Whitebeard Detail, how's it going? Carson, hey Fritz, big fan. I have an F22 M235i and my display just began to bubble. Was looking to replace it and saw you got an aftermarket one a few years ago. Has it treated you well? Yes, it has. The that Kosan screen actually, I feel like I'm always either lazy or I just forget. I still have the, like whenever we get like electronic components, it could be cell phones or computer screens or cameras, whatever. They have that plastic covering there. It's not really a screen protector, but it will protect from scratches. But we all know that plastic cover gets scratched up a lot. I still have that plastic cover on my screen. And there's a lot of people that says like, oh, your screen's so scratched up. How did you get it so scratched up? It's actually the original protective screen. But to answer your question, that brand has actually come out with a few iterations since that. So my current model is no longer for sale. It's an old version of Android. They combined the internal components that I have separate right now. So I have a separate adapter and dongle in order to do Android Auto and Apple CarPlay wirelessly. All of that is now built in. So if you look at my video for the X3 display install, all that entire unit now has the Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, all wireless built in. It doesn't require you to have a separate dongle anymore. So if you get it now, you'll be getting a model that's much better than mine. Jay, what are your thoughts on installing the M control arms on the F30 platform? I've seen a few videos pop up with them and wasn't sure if it was something worth doing. So I would say the only thing is with installing the M control arms is that you're going to introduce some positive caster, which means your wheels are going to slightly move. If you're looking at the wheel well, it's going to slightly move towards the front. In order to rectify that, you're going to have to get the M thrust arm. I am more of the component of getting just SPL control arms and thrust arms. Yes, they are more expensive. However, if you plan to do things like coilovers, camber plates, you want to run your car pretty low, you will want that extra adjustability to get you whatever your camber from the camber plate cannot. It's just going to give you additional flexibility. The thing is with the M control arms is once it's in, it's in. It's a set fixed position. And even if you do the thrust arm, again, it's a set position. So if you do coilovers and you want to run low and you want to introduce more camber, or you need to maybe pull it back, your caster, a little bit because you're rubbing as the car is oscillating up and down, and you're running into that top portion of the. So if you're looking at the wheel arch, if you're running into the front portion, the front top portion of the wheel well, and you need to dial back your caster, you need to dial back your caster a little bit, then you won't be able to do that. So let me say that one more time with the correct phrasing. If you install the M control arm to get in the camber, it'll introduce caster. To bring your caster back to neutral, you will have to install the M thrust arms. And once those positions are in, they're fixed. Sometimes, depending on your suspension, you will need to adjust the caster and camber beyond what a camber plate, depending on which camber plate you get, can go. And sometimes for an alignment shop, if you're going off of a 10th of a camber, like if the camber's like, say like you have your two sides, like one is at 1.5 and the other one is at 1.48, it's much easier to extend the length of that control arm versus lifting the car up to get it, to not have the weight on the strut, and then move the camber plate. So you're going to give your alignment shop a much easier time as well. So keep that in mind. Do you need a DME unlock to use BM3? Yes. However, some cars, they're just unlocked right out of the gate. Some cars, they're locked. Some cars, they're not. So I believe you could download like Beamer Link or BM3, like the free version, and then from there it'll be able to tell you if it's locked, and then I think you'll have to get like additional services to unlock it. Do you put grease on contact points on the brake pads? You mean the point where like the pistons come into contact with the back of the brake pad, not the part that grips the rotor, but the part that the pistons actually press on? Yes. One second. Jay, what are your thoughts on installing M control arms on the F32, F30 platform? Okay, I think this is, maybe that's a repeat. White beard detail. How do you find out if you need a DME unlock? Okay, so that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Just download the free version of I believe it's BM3. I would say like type in that question with BMW or F chassis, whatever the chassis is of your car, into YouTube, and there's a few videos of that that will provide you with free resources to figure out. So like you could download a free version of BM3 or MHD. I forget, one of the major tuning brands, their free version in there will also let you know if you need a DME unlock. So I got an F36. Yeah, so that's how I would type it in. I would say F36, or sorry, does a F30, sorry. How to find out if my F36 DME is locked. That's how I would phrase it. Carson, okay, awesome. Thank you for the info. No problem. Happy to help. Soul Slinger, my guy, how's it going? Hope all is well with you. Hope you had a relatively smooth day. I know that you're working long hours right now. I hope all is well with you and your projects are going well. I think that you got a car up and running for us the last time. It's good to hear from you. Just got home from work. Glad to catch y'all on. Yep, good to have you here. I am happy to have you here every time. M or not, just on a BMW, my guy. There it is. Yep. There's no reason for us to bicker amongst each other in the community. And I think Soul Slinger is a very positive and helpful person in the community as well. Always thankful to ask. I would say like if when you guys are here in the live chat, if I'm not able to answer a question, I guarantee that he's going to be able to answer it. So if you see him in the chat, this guy is a wealth of knowledge. Really happy to have him here in our community. White beard detail. No grease on corner on the pads where they sit just on the piston part. Oh, you're talking about when you're in the metal, like when it, yeah, you can put it there too. I mean, like you don't want to like overdo it, just like a little bit, right? Because it's gonna slide, right? So you don't want that metal to metal contact there. So yeah, you could put a little bit there as well. I would say like on the where it touches the piston, you will want more, but just because it's just that little groove, right? So you don't need a ton there, just because there's not a lot of surface area to hold that amount of grease, and it's not like it'll flow in by gravity if you put in more. I would say like if they squeak, if your brakes kind of give you a weird reaction, or they don't feel right, then you can add some more. But a little bit of that high temp grease, that brake grease, goes a long, long way. I would say less is more in this case. Okay, poor boy question now. Can I just take the stuff from my downpipe and reinstall that for now? The stuff? You mean reusing the clamps and the gaskets? Yeah, that's perfectly fine. I mean, a lot of shops will do it too. Like you don't have to replace the gasket as long as like you can't smell it if it doesn't bother you, and as long as the clamp seals, it's fine. Like the metal clamp that goes from the turbo to the downpipe, and then the other end you have that the clamp with the teeth. If that can clamp to the rest of the exhaust, that's fine. Those teeth have a tendency to bend. So if you're able to just take it off, kind of bend them a little bit in place, don't be too aggressive with them. And as long as they grip, it's fine. And that gasket, that kind of like metal mesh type of gasket, if it's fixed in the turbo, don't poke it out. Just leave it there. Put in your downpipe, and then if the smell bothers you, then swap out the gasket. Soul Slinger, grease the tabs on the brake pads. Any metal to metal contact areas, a thin film. I'm glad I got it right. Yeah, see, if I don't got the answer, Soul Slinger does. And I think the way that he worded it is much better than mine as well. That's definitely the voice of experience right there. Richard, any plans on another BMW? So right now, no. Right now, the F22 that I daily, and my dad's F30 is keeping me plenty busy. And I mean, I was thinking of an M2 maybe down the line. I actually don't know if I want to go M2 or Supra route. I kind of really wanted to cut like myself into the marketplace of like the 2 Series kind of, I guess, influencer or specialist, I would say. But with Soul Slinger here, I'm very skeptical to use terminology like that, because he is definitely the expert here, as far as I know from everybody here in the chat. He's definitely helped out a lot of people, including myself. And I didn't want to get the M240i, because if we're talking like suspension, control arms, all that stuff is going to be the same from the M235i. The only thing that's going to change is the engine. So if people take what I do chassis-wise from the M235i and then apply what I do engine-wise from the Supra, it'll cover me for Supra people, but also M240i owners. The reason why I wouldn't go M2 is because the only M2 that I want is the M2 CS, and that is a very niche market. It's not, for me, it's not necessarily that I want the top level trim, going back to the original topic of today's video. It's that I don't like the idea of a dumbed down engine. I don't like the idea that BMW intentionally hindered the previous M2s They didn't give it the M2 seats. They did little, like even on the M2 CS, they did some rinky-dink things, like they didn't give it the comfort access. Like, yeah, on the real track M2 CS car, you don't need comfort access. But this is an M2 CS that is being sold to the masses. Give us the comfort access, right? So it, to that, like the reason why is just because I kind of see this as a business for me now, and it's making okay side money. It's nothing life-changing, but it, you know, it helps pay for a few bills here and there. And if I want that to continue, I think that the Supra would make me more marketable than the M2. But that probably wouldn't be for at least a few years, right? The other thing that I think of too, like it would be cool to get the Supra now. Like you'd be one of the first people to have it. You'd be able to talk about it. Again, I'm not as relatable. The M235i and the F30 make me very relatable. I'm very relevant, I would say, as far as DIYs, reviews, questions. A lot of things are coming up on these cars now just because of their age. The Supra, I mean, people are probably still like on the manufacturer warranty, right? The only people who are really looking at the Supra are they're just looking, right? They're checking out your content because it looks cool. They want to know about it, but they're not really working on the car just yet because a lot of them are still under warranty. But I mean, if you have any other suggestions, please let me know. White beer detail. No on the carbon materials. Oh, no, the carbon materials inside the downpipe so I can make it catless. Would I get any sensor issues? Yes, you will get an issue with your post O2 sensor. If the carbon materials are loose, it won't work. Eventually, I mean, it just rattle, and then eventually it'll work its way down the pipe. You could like delete the sensor value. You'll have to code that in. BM3, if you already have that, has an option for that right out the gate. If the material is already like broken up, honestly, there's nothing that you can really do to reuse it. I mean, you could try to sell it. That would be the best thing. But you can't just like take that material and put it into a catless downpipe, and it's just easier to coat it. Coat it out, I should say. Soul Slinger. Myself, when my 540i is done, I might consider another BMW project, but for now, I need to get the Mercedes off my driveway. I do want a 3 Series, but I won't be doing any newer cars. I like the retros. Hey, man, you'll always be relevant for that. And there's something different about the NA cars. Like, it's different. I mean, I think BMW did a good job, again, with the N55, going from the N54, of kind of eliminating that turbo lag. There's just something different with NA cars, like the sound, the feel, the instant, like you hit the brake or you hit the gas and it's like the power is either all there or you cut it off. Like, it's something that you don't necessarily get even in like a turbocharged car, no matter how good or reduced the turbo lag is. So I understand. I understand exactly what you're saying, man. You're making me jealous. Only thing with the M cars is the lower bearings needing replacement after so many miles. Right. Good call. I think one of the biggest proponents of this is the E90, E92 M3. Those rod bearings, yeah, those are notorious. Or at least that car is. Like, that's, every engine has its quirk, like, right? Like the N20, N26, it's the timing chain. For the E90, E92, we're talking the bearings. and there's another engine out there. N54, if people are like, oh, it makes more power than the N55, it's the walnut blasting. Jay, option on the best suspension upgrade for F32 with adapts KW DDC. I say that because that's the one that I have on my car. I know that people will say Öhlins is pretty good. I don't know if they have the adaptive suspension for that. Bilstein makes one too. From all the reviews, KW is a little bit faster than Bilstein when it comes to warranty claims, and they're about the same price. The other thing that I like about KW is that, with the exception to the top mounts for the rears and the fronts on the shocks, as well as the very top portion of the dust boot for the top mounts, it uses all new hardware. Bilstein uses a lot of the OEM components when doing the install. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Like those parts, like it's not like those parts are like they go bad or that they need to be replaced. But the thing that I like about KW is, you know, it's all their system. Just make sure that if you do the KWs, that in the rear you put some double-sided tape on the adjuster or something adhesive-wise, like something relatively strong, because if you try to do adjustments and there's nothing to hold in that top portion of the adjuster, it'll just spin in place. Whitebeard detail. Make 2 Series your daily and Supra a show car. Oh man, don't tempt me. Possibly. That would be it. In all honesty, I don't know what I would do. I mean, honestly, to juggle 3 cars would be tough. I mean, I know that my dad drives the F30, but it's like working on 3 different cars. And my dad's like, he's not like super into cars. I mean, he likes to drive a nicer car because he had a Honda CR-V like in 1997 before. And so I actually gave that car to one of my aunts, and then I got him the BMW. There are just like some things he's not really careful about. Like if there's a pothole and a chance to avoid it, he doesn't necessarily avoid it. He'll just like take it head on. So little things like that will cause my phone to ring, and I'll have to address that issue. There is a possibility of, you know, potentially selling the F30 and then he would take over the M235i. I don't know. The other thing, it's hard for me to let go of the M235i because that's the car that kind of like cornerstone this whole thing. It would be very challenging for me to sell too because it is a salvage title car. So although the salvage title was for flood damage, which was like 6 years ago. So I think flood damaged, it had to get repaired. So it was like off the market for like at least a year. And then I bought it, and I've had the car for 4 or 5 years now. But yeah, that's a tempting offer. You know, actually one of the reasons why I would want the Supra too is, when I was looking at the M235i, I was actually thinking about getting a Cayman, like an older Cayman. And one of the reasons why, and you guys would probably think it's a little selfish, and it is, the reason why I wanted the Cayman or like a Porsche in general was because it's a 2-seater car. So nobody's going to ask you to take them to the airport. Nobody's going to ask you, oh, like if you have a truck, right? Like if you have a truck, you're that one friend that everybody calls none of the time except for when they move. And so I think when I had the G37, it was a bigger car. My M3, E36 M3, you know, you could fold down the seats and all that stuff. The 2 Series is deceptively small. I've found out with my time of ownership. A lot of people think it's a 2 Series, like who are not BMW people. So they're like, oh, Fritz can't take anybody people in his backseat. It's a 2-seater. And I don't say anything. Like, so that's also one of the allures of the Supra, is that it is a 2-seater. So there's that. I don't know how you guys are going to feel about that one. Let me know. Soul Slinger. M's being a true racing vehicle, they are needy. Yeah. My E36, I think I was using it as just like a commuter, like going to school at the time. I had that car for 8 years, maybe. I had it for a long time. And mechanically it was sound. It was just like the electrical went bad. But yeah, I just commuted that like maybe like 10 to 20 miles a day. And like it would burn off oil. It would need time to warm up. But of course, it is an older car. The thing I will admit, if you gave me a choice between an E30, my old E36, and it being, having its problems and all that, or the G37 that I got after, I take the E36. I'll say like the Infinity, it only sounds better, the exhaust note. Other than that, they're just like weird little quirky things. Like the E36 M3, or even my 328 E36, the limitations of the car. Like there are certain parameters, like say the best example is like the friction point on the clutch. Like it's always going to be there. Sometimes with the G37, like sometimes the clutch would feel soft, sometimes it would be stiff. With the E36, like if I take a turn, I know it's going to respond well because it's a shorter wheelbase than the G37. Also, just because it's an older car, right? If anybody's had an older car, if you go at a certain speed, if you take a certain turn, if you lean into something like a maneuver a certain way, the car will make a certain type of sound. Like the plastics, for example, will squeak or crack or something like that, right? And when you're driving, like those sounds, those predictable sounds let you know like everything's okay, or you're within the tolerance that you're expecting to be in. The G37, that thing, sometimes it'll be quiet. Sometimes you get the plastic cracking. Sometimes like it'll make, it's not consistent. That's the best way I can put it. And it's that inconsistency that throws you off as you're driving. Just, I guess if you're playing music, like I'm one of those people who doesn't play anything when they drive. I would listen to like audiobooks or my lectures when I was in school in the car. But since I graduated and I work now, if I don't listen to something like an audiobook, I often find myself mostly radio off and just the ambient sound of the drive. And the G37, just with its inconsistencies, it throws me off. So I guess the pacing of it, the rhythm of it doesn't allow me to kind of like lock in. The E36, it does. It's reliable. White beer detail. I'm going to get the GC downpipe catted race, but for now, I would just like a little bit more noise. Let me see. What car did you say that you had again? F36. Honestly, sound is very subjective. Some people I know have done a cat delete, muffler delete, resonator delete, and it's and a tune. And unless they do an aggressive tune, it's still not loud enough. I would say the best option for noise is, you decat, delete the muffler, or do an aftermarket exhaust. And if you still want more, you can delete the resonator. You just get a little bit of drone. Soul Singer. Mine was the M62 TU engine with its timing chain issue. Yeah, actually, you know what? I wouldn't tackle a timing chain. job, I definitely wouldn't film it. There are some jobs where I'm like, okay, I feel like I could take on this job, and then I'll film it. Or I won't film it, I should say. This is a job that I would not film, nor would I do on my own. I don't have enough confidence in myself. You, my friend, I feel like this is like a couple of hours and a pizza for you. So for me, like this, like I said, this all goes back to what we're talking about earlier, is what are you willing to accept? What are you willing to work on? The good thing about working on your cars on your own is when you get to a job that you feel uncomfortable with, you should have saved enough money to pay a shop to do something like this. But if you're a soul slinger, you put a couple hours aside, you order a pizza, and you drive it home afterwards. But yeah, some timing issues are a pain. But I think BMW, I just watched a video on this. It's how they made the chain. I think it's something like the link system. It was separated, like not the part that actually connects, but like the width of the link. I think they made thicker. And before it was just as thick, but they were individual plates to give it the thickness. And now it's like one solid piece. So therefore it doesn't stretch as easily. Oh my goodness, I forget what video I was watching on that. But yeah, supposedly BMW has improved on that since the whole timing chain guide with the N20 engine and all that other stuff. But I'm pretty sure, like, Soul Singer, you would have resources or know like where to get like upgraded components like that, versus like if BMW had a faulty part like that, you wouldn't want to get that again, right? So you would opt for aftermarket, correct? MKD, awesome content, sir, senor. Ended up putting the lower control arms and bushes to try to fix the M240i after viewing your vids. Oh, good. Happy to help. I will say that the lower control arm is not my best work. I definitely did have to take it to a shop. I was definitely inexperienced on that now. The thrust arm, look at the more recent video if you haven't done that one yet. If you're not X-Drive, you just don't have to do the axle bolt. And hopefully that video is much better. In its instruction as well as the torque specs and all that stuff. So I hope the updated video is of better service to you. And I'm happy to see that you got it in. Soul Singer, I cut the back can off my exhaust to straight pipe for more noise. It still doesn't drone, which is nice. I knocked out my cats, but we'll be replacing them for stock function. Yeah, so Whitebeard detail. So this is exactly what I was talking about. Like, it's subjective, but also like look for, like, I would say look on forums. Some people post sound clips, and then you have people like Soul Singer who will like share like what they've done. And as far as like, is it enough? Is it not enough? Like this is a great resource. So forums, even like YouTube videos with like not a lot of views, you'll probably be able to get some good sound clips in there. And hopefully that helps you with the exhaust note that you're looking for. MKD. Oh, no, this is a... why is it repeating? Here we go. Have you tried KW or Bilstein on F22s? What do you think about them to try to fix the float? KW works great. So I've driven on the DDC on the F22. I've installed a set of K1 or V1s on a 228i. Those also handle very, very well. So I would say if you don't have adaptive suspension and you want just like good bang for your buck, V1s are the way to go. If you do, you go the EDC route or DDC route, and you'll have that adaptive control. I will probably be installing a set of V3s on the F30, not necessarily because my dad's going to track it or anything. It's just an opportunity came up where I was able to pick up a set of V3s for less than V1s. Trying to build a poor man's M2. You and I both. Yeah, I would definitely go, if you don't have the EDC, just go V1. And if you're not going to track it, V1 is more than enough. And I would say, like, if you were planning to get like V3s, and if you don't track, I would say get V1s and add camber plates. Vorschlag, I think, makes the thickest spherical bearing out of all of them, so it's beefier. However, if you want one that's more streetable, Milway makes one. Their bearing isn't as big. However, they do give a polyurethane like sleeve in there that helps eliminate the NVH. So those are two things that you'll want to look into. Stereo Sound Agent, what's up? I'm having heavy M240 envy recently, but the M235i was originally daily for my E46 M3. Yeah, there's nothing to be envious about, man. I mean, the M235i is a perfectly well-oiled machine. I would say that all things being equal, there's less of a monetary investment for the M235i because it built off of the low points of the M54. The B58, there's not as much information out there, so that's why like stuff was kind of going wrong with the tunes, and you definitely have to replace the cooling components sooner rather than later. Yeah, there's no reason, man. I mean, you got an E46, you got an M235i. The M240 should be envious of you. These B58 engines are something special. Really wanted M2 and got convinced at the M240i 2017 just because of the engine. I think I got snake oiled about the handling fixing. In what regard? I mean, the 2 series, I would say stock, like the M235i and the M240i, like the 2 series in general is just going to handle better than the other cars because they're a smaller, lighter weight chassis, and they do borrow a lot of the 3 and 4 series components. So if you imagine that, those suspension components are meant to handle a heavier, wider car, and they're putting them in a smaller, lighter car. So that's why the 2 series can handle better right out the gate. I had a friend that had an older white Cayman on coils with a higher ratio LSD, and it was so fun despite not being overly powered. Yeah, I mean, if you're not, one, if you're carving up canyons with it, you don't need that much power. 2, if you're dailying your car, you sit in a lot of traffic, then having that much power is nice when you're coming on the freeway and then when you're just trying to get off. Other than that, you're not really using it. I mean, like when I go home late, like days like this, it's fun. But then again, you know, there's always that like cop car that's kind of like just trolling right there. So that's always in the back of your mind where you can't just like gun it. So I would, like, I think to me, Miata is a little bit like too underpowered. Like to me, like there's a threshold of like the amount of power that you need. And, you know, price aside, I would say like the Cayman is like a good balance between power and suspension, of course, because of its size and because it's a center mount engine, like it's mounted in the center of the car. It gives you better balance, better handling. And I would almost, as long as I meet the power threshold, if I'm at the threshold of like, okay, that's enough power for a daily. Now what do I want to do? I have a little bit of money. What do I want to do? I would always lean on the suspension versus power, just because of you're not always going to be able to use the power, but no matter what you're doing, you're always using the suspension. When you brake, when you accelerate, when you need to do a maneuver because maybe there's something on the road, there's a pothole, there's an accident, somebody tries to cut you off, you're always using the suspension. You're not always going to use the power. MKD. Supra is a Supra. Can't go wrong, right? Right? aftermarket exhausts are really worth it before any shenanigans of cutting stuff. Yeah. I mean, there are some people out there who are really talented with welding, and if that's you, kudos to you. And if you can make it sound good and all that stuff, I give my hand. Like, there are some people who are really talented with this. Of course, you get some people who are like, who kind of like do, you know, a half job on it. And then the aftermarket exhausts, like the ones that are just like straight pipe, if you're going to straight pipe it yourself versus buying an aftermarket one straight pipe, then it doesn't really matter. Like, just save the money and get a straight pipe. But if you're after a certain noise, usually the aftermarket manufacturers nail down that sound really good. We can do the timing chain on mine. 2015 F32, and I'm in the Bay Area. Although mine is still under warranty. Okay. Well, I mean, I hope if anything happens to it, I hope that you just get that warranty claim. That'll honestly be the best thing. And I think the timing chain, as far as those, that I think is still covered under like the SULEV. If your car's a SULEV, I think that's still covered. Soul Singer, I could do it, but books say 42 hours and a lot of special tooling. I just don't want to deal with it. Castle Motorsports will be doing it for me. Okay. I can't justify buying all the equipment to get it done. It's Vanos too. Oh, okay. I see. Oh, man. Hey, man. It's fine. I mean, 42 hours is a long time. I mean, for you, that's a lot of sleep, like catching up on sleep. And you need it. So, yeah. Special tooling too. I hate the special tooling stuff. And then Vanos is like, if you're well versed in Vanos, it's fine. Like, it's its own thing, I feel like. Yeah. Hey, man. Save the 42 hours and get some extra sleep, man. I mean, you're already crushing it at work. I can only imagine adding an extra 42 hours to that. Whitebeard detail. I want the M4 fenders. Is it shunned upon in the community to do so? I wouldn't use the M4 badge. I would either find a 440i or a B58 badge. No M badges. I don't know if it's shunned upon. Honestly, I think it's fine. If you like it, just do it. If you don't want the M, it might be hard for you to find a badge. If it is, you could always vinyl wrap it. But honestly, if it looks good, if it's not shabby, I mean, like I said before, is I think if anybody shuns you on it, like, I mean, they're probably mad that they didn't do it first, right? I mean, what's the harm in it? Hey, man, I'll tell you this. If you do it, I'll tell you it looks cool. I mean, first of all, I mean, even my approval doesn't mean anything. Like, if you think it looks cool, if it has a specific function you're trying to achieve, doesn't matter. Does not matter. There is, okay, I will say, like, like, if you're telling me like what is shunned upon on a scale of 1 to 10, this is at most, and I'm being really nitpicky here, like the most nitpicky person online, I would say like this is like a 3. To me personally, this is like a 0.5 or a 1. It's like if I had to give it 1 to 10, right? But honestly, for me, it's a 0. There are actually people who, I think they're 911s. So Porsche 911s who are engine swapping. So they're taking out the Porsche engine and they're doing like the Honda K series motors in its place. So you want to talk about shunned upon, right? Of course, like that is more intricate coding, you know, getting all the parts to work together, talking all that stuff. And if you do it right, you can actually make more power at a lower cost than the Porsche engine. So compared to that, this ain't nothing, man. I'll tell you, you do it, I'll tell you it looks cool. I mean, I think it'll look fine. The chassis is pretty much the same. The only thing is like, it might look a little off just because if you don't do the bumper and the rear fenders, like the proportions might be off. But if you're just looking at it in isolation, I think it's fine. And I'm saying it might not. Like that's a pretty long car. And depending on the angle and the color and the lighting, it might not be that big of a deal. Soul Slinger, do the M4 fenders. I have the M5 bumpers. I didn't badge it either. It's worth it for the look. Well, if Soul Slinger said it, then that's pretty much all the seal of approval that you really need. Forget everything that I said. Whatever Soul Slinger says is correct. Wipe your detail. Yeah, I got to save for these parts. Something inside me says, get a credit card with 0% and go crazy, but I'm a little bit more small. Yeah. If you don't need to, if you're not making money off of it, there's no need to throw it on a credit card. I mean, I hope it never happens, but there's always like fenders, bumpers, hoods, like this is all cosmetic stuff. I feel like usually if we do that, it's like, oh yeah, I'll just put it on my credit card and then boom, something mechanical, something that you need happens. And then you're out more than what you really intended to, or you kind of took up that cushion that you originally thought. So I'm glad that you are more responsible. Just wait. Whenever the time is right, you'll know. And send me pictures or add me on Instagram, whatever, or whatever, or TikTok. I'll follow back. If you do it, I'd love to see it. MKD, thank you for your replies in time. Of course, no problem. Happy to help, and glad to have you here. I think this is the first time that you're here. If it is, welcome. If not, welcome back. Bill, need the M235i for the poor man's M2 or the M240i? Honestly, if you're on a budget, M2, if you're willing to spend a little bit more and revamp those plastic cooling components for the B58 M240i, if you find them both at the same price point, I would say like M240i, just take it a little easy until you save a little bit more, just because the maintenance is going to be a little bit higher. Michael, patience, my friend. Social media makes you feel like you're behind. Save yourself 5 to 15K by waiting for the market to come down, and don't have your whole paycheck going to a car. Absolutely. I do anticipate, I would say pay attention. If we're in it right now, like the summer months is usually when cars sell really, really well. If the car sales do not meet their target trajectory, expect the market to tank in the fall and winter. And as Michael said, that's the time to buy. Whitebeard detail. Yeah, man, get a Discord where we can send pictures and ask questions and all. Ooh, okay, Soul Slinger, I will task you with that. I will admit I am probably really bad, and Soul Slinger knows this. I am bad at checking my Discord. I am on there. It's one of the things that always slips my mind. But Soul Slinger has, he's got a lot of pictures on there. Oh, you guys are asking me to set up a Discord. Oh my goodness, you guys are asking the wrong person. Oh, okay. Okay, I'll look into it, but I think I don't know how it really works, but I will definitely need a monitor in there to help me, you know, do all of the things. I'm very unfamiliar with Discord. I just know how to like check the chat and respond. Like, I don't even know how to like do all like the fancy commenting stuff. I don't have adaptive suspension, so I was thinking about going KWV2 coilovers, but do they still provide a luxurious ride? Yeah, I mean, because you can, if I'm not mistaken, the V2 you can set the rebound. Even the V1s where you can only adjust height, it's really good. The thing is with the stock suspension, people are like, oh, like I don't want to lose that comfort. The thing that people I think don't realize is with the suspension is it's soft, but it oscillates a lot, right? So like if you go over a bump, it's soft. You barely feel it, but you feel it. With the suspension, it's like one up, one down. And it's not like it's like where it throws you, it's like, and it guides you down, right? So it just, it really is, oh my goodness, I'm trying to think of anything that's similar to it. It's, I mean, it works better than OEM. I would say V1s work. I would say if you have a friend, somebody who works in a shop, anybody who could just give you a ride, like you don't even need to be the driver. It's night and day. You don't necessarily need V2s. V2s, if you want a stiffer ride, if you want a little bit more control over that, that's fine. If it's a daily, if you, yeah, I mean, you could probably, yeah, V2 is fine. Some people are like, set it and forget it. And they're like, no, I never want to touch it. Then I suggest V1. But if you're going to play around with it, V2 is a very good option for you. And it will do exactly what you're hoping for. Jay, were you able to catch the Garage 56 NASCAR Camaro Gap, the GTE cars on the Le Mans endurance race this past weekend? I did not. What was I doing this weekend? I was working on the window motor for the F30, I think. Probably. And then I had to edit a few of the videos and do some of the stuff for the Rex Racing Wheels. I did not catch that. I'll go look it up after this, though. Thanks for letting me know. Whitebeard detail. Drop the link. Oh my goodness. I don't know if I have a link for that. Well, this is normally where I get all my suspension stuff from. Let's see. KWV2. Huh. I would say shop around. I mean, you can look at ECS, Turner. I would say call them all up, but also, or shop on their website, but you can actually, about us, contact us. If you want, go ahead and, I don't know why it looks like that right now. This is probably my computer that's all weird. There we go. Go ahead and send them a message. You can tell them that I sent you in, and hopefully they hook you up. Tell them exactly what you need, and then their phone number is right down there as well. Yeah, I don't actually have like a link or a vendor for KW normally. So SV Bimmer is their shop that actually it's near my office. It's like right in between my office and my house. So for like bigger stuff like that, this is normally my contact. Soul Singer, it's super easy to set one up. Okay. I'll look into it. I will. I'm probably like, I feel like you guys probably thinking like I'm a senior citizen right now, not knowing how to set it up. Let's see. Let's go back over here. Bill, in the end, I picked the M240i with X-Drive. Nice. Due to high value, handling, power, it checks all the boxes. Only issue is the little floating. All 2 series have, but apparently can be fixed with lower control arms and suspension. So if I were to do it all again, I would say camber plates and coils first. For the 2 series, that would probably remedy most things. From there, you can probably go a little wider tires and wheels. You might need to roll the fenders depending on the size and configuration that you get. If you need more, then do the adjustable arms. In the 2 series, just because of the chassis size and weight, coilovers and camber plates are going to be able to address most of the issues. I probably would have done the lower control arms eventually, but as far as like noticeable improvements, the suspension was like, oh my goodness. And the 228i that I just did, when I did the suspension first, it's like, oh my goodness, like this is so good. I almost at this point regret doing the sway bars because those things were like almost $1,000, or it was $1,000, and the headache of the install, it's like it's one of the things where like I would have rather put that $1,000 and time into something else. The sway bars are very minimal. I would say like their impact is very minimal once you have the coilovers in. MKD, running stage 1 with even Turi. Okay. Admission and ream. Okay. Pulling for. Okay, that's a. What do you need my help for, man? Your baller status. You got the even Turi and Remus. Oh my goodness. You should be doing this stream instead of me. Oh my goodness. I'm still running stock exhaust. I'm running stock exhaust with a high flow drop-in filter. 0 to 60 is about 3.9. Oh my god. Well, why don't you just wait for me? I'll eventually get there. I'm gonna walk over there. You'll get a few smiles from Porsche owners that think they can get away and you paid a third of their car. Well, I think the Cayman is if you find one, like an older one, it's close. I remember well, of course the M235i is salvaged, right? So I think $20K was about the price point. I think the only thing that I didn't like about the Cayman was that I just because of where I am, I definitely would have had to do a hard top for security reasons. And then if it rains, I just don't like soft top. And then also there's like some weird, like if you're trying to work on the car, there's some weird inconveniences. Like in theory, it's nice to have the engine there. When you're working on it, it's like, yeah, but I feel you on that. We definitely do have a good bang for the buck with the 2 series. Jay, I was looking sway bars, but you've just convinced me not to do it. Yeah, do the coilovers first. Watch. It's not the best, okay? But just so that you understand the amount of headache that those sway bars are, just watch my videos on them. To lower the subframe, it's tedious. Like the rears are the most tedious because you have to remove all the paneling, lower the subframe, and it's so hard to angle in. I feel like if someone were to ask me, hey, could you do sway bars or coilovers, I would charge more as far as labor for the sway bars. And I'll be like, just get coilovers. It's a little bit more expensive. I'll charge you less for the labor, and it's going to be a better improvement. If you still want more, do the control arms. I would do sway bars last. On the M2, because the sway bar is underneath the subframe, that's fine doing that one. It's easy. It's the non-M cars that have the sway bar on top of the subframe. Oh my goodness. Not a fun day. Not a lot of shops actually lower the entire subframe. They don't just drop it or droop it a little bit. They drop the entire subframe just because it's easier and they can torque it down to spec. Then you run into the issue of the links not matching up. Not fun. Soul Slinger, I'll drop my number in my Discord and you can call me when you get time and I'll talk you through setting up. Weekends are best for me. Okay. All right. This weekend I'll be a little busy because I actually have to, well, it's Father's Day. And then also I have a photo shoot for the Rex Racing Wheels. I need to get that done before I start really driving the car. I haven't driven my car that much recently just because I haven't done the photo shoot for it that the company wants. So maybe next weekend, but I'll start browsing through YouTube on setting it up. If I set it up wrong, I'm sure that you'll be able to help me through it, or we'll just create a different one. I'll probably like make one to see if it's okay. I'll invite you in, and then if it's not up to spec, we'll just create a brand new one. But at least I'll have a draft. And thank you for that. I do appreciate your help. In this venture as well. I feel like you're the expert in these live streams rather than me. Bill, you think the progression the car owner is, did you get cut off? I don't see another message. MKD. Yeah, but it handles terrible on corners. I'm learning from you. Yeah, you know what? Honestly, I think the reason why I think the M235i handles really good while stock is because I came from the G37. It's so long in the tooth. Yeah. And then also the other car that I have to compare is my dad's F30. And we had the white one before, but I was running stock suspension on that when I had that car too. And I mean, I guess it's just it's a relative thing, right? So it depends on what car you came from. But when I compare it to the G37, I compare it to the F30, the 2 Series stock suspension handles great. When you throw on coils, then you're like, what was I thinking? Cayman is so sweet. I'm looking at the 2012 one, but you are Chucky Fritz. Okay, thanks. Well, if you do get one, I mean, you're more than. Here's the thing. A lot of like the group chats that I'm part of or whatever, they think like, if they get off the 2 Series platform, like they can't hang out anymore in the chat. Like, if you get a Cayman, man, like you can post pictures on your Cayman, you can still hang out in the chat. Like, yeah, like there's no reason like somebody has to leave the chat. Like, you're still a wealth of information. You still have your experiences. You're still willing to help and be a willing participant in the group. I mean, so what if I think the person that I was thinking of last, they ended up getting like a Type R, and they're like, oh, like, leaving the chat. In my head, I was like, it's not, I'm not in charge of the chat, but I'm like, why do you don't have to leave? Like, you had your car for a few years. Like, there's people who are going to ask questions that I'm sure that you could answer. And then maybe somebody would be in your same situation where they were thinking about a Type R from a 235. And they're like, hey, do you regret your decision? What are some of the things that you like about the car? What are some of the things that you don't like about the car that the 2 Series had? And then based off of the new person's perspective and what they value, maybe they will get the Type R or maybe they won't. So, I mean, just because you like leave, I guess, like the car, like you don't have to leave the chat, right? Oh, Kevin. Oh, okay. Thank you. I wonder I if you're really Kevin, thank you. Part of me feels like you are one of my other friends. I bet your parents are proud of you. They're okay. I mean, I do okay, right? My sister's very successful. My brother's doing okay, right? I'm the youngest of three, so it's like whatever. I mean, they don't treat me like I'm the baby of the family, but I guess I will say they're decently. I get their approval, I guess you could say. Thank you for that. Soul Singer, whenever is good, man. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And don't worry, I won't bother you on weekdays. I know that you're working like crazy. I don't want to add any unnecessary stress to you. And this is just for fun for us, right? So, yeah, I'll get to work on it, and then once I have something, I'll let you know. I always appreciate your help, man. Bill, you think the progression of car owner is okay? A bucket in high school, BMW is your first big boy college job car, Porsche when you reach midlife crisis. That ain't a bad way to put it. I mean, it's kind of spot on. Well, I guess I'm not at a midlife crisis yet, unless I'm going to pass away around like 65. Honestly, I'll be honest. Like, I really meant what I said about the reason why I wanted a Porsche is because no one's going to ask you to drive them to the airport in a Porsche. That's honestly it. And that's kind of why I'm leaning on the Supra versus the M2. Like, I still get some people like, oh, can you take me to the airport? Oh, if you pull down your seats and you can get in some of the bigger luggage. I'm like, and some of the people who really know me, like, know that the 2 Series is deceptively small, but that trunk space, the 2 Series trunk space is much better than the G37. Some people used to think like I could take them to the airport in the G37, and I couldn't. And then now that I have the 2 Series, they found out that I can take them to the airport, or they're like, oh, can you help me move? So with a Porsche, those questions will be very limited. Soul Singer, I got to go. Everyone have a great weekend. Give a call, Fritz. Me and Steph will help out. All right. Yeah. Well, hey, man, you deserve a lot of rest. I hope you have a good rest of your week too, man. It's good to have you here, and thanks for your help. I will definitely take you up on that offer. Thank you. And that's actually one of the best comments for us to end on. Wow, we've been on here for a while now. So we do have a request for a topic for next week. I will do a little bit of research into that, and then I think next week maybe the rep from Rex Racing Wheels will be available to answer some questions. So if you guys want me to kind of preload those questions into the live stream, let me know what they are. Just send me the DMs here, and I'll make sure we get those up. If not, I think it's the week after. So I hope everybody, and yes to you too, Soul Singer. I hope all of you have a good rest of the week. Thanks for hanging in, asking your questions. Soul Slinger, thank you so much for answering all the questions that I couldn't and offering your help with the Discord. I hope that will help us build a better community where all of us can help and learn and grow from each other and help the other incoming 2 Series people. Stereo Sound Agent, have a good night as well. I will see all of you next week. Bill, love your content, Fritz. I'm a recent M235 owner. I've been watching all your vids about it. Have a good night as well. You too. Like I said, if there's anything that I miss, Soul Singer is here to help out in the live streams. So all of you have a good night. Be safe. And since I won't see you, have a good weekend.